This video should be pretty nostalgic as well.
Do you remember?
I already hear the AOL dial-up sound, so that checks out. This is about forgotten websites of the 1990s by Nation Squid, dude. Let's freaking see what they got.
Do you remember those websites from the 1990s?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm talking about those
I was
websites.
a baby.
The ones that stood out as being...
I did react to that Freddy Fazbear thing. Scroll back in the street.
Overly flashy, almost a novelty of their own, despite them often representing a pre-existing brand.
You got mail.
It's
Assuming you were
AOL.
even old enough to remember the early days of the internet, it's easy to remark on how strange these websites were. Their vibe, form, even entire purpose of existing exhibits an
Yes, dude. Websites do still exist, but they're just fewer and farther between. Like lonniedos.gov. Best website, dude. Live, laugh, lonniedos. I love to scroll this webpage and see their offers and wares often and much. See this funny little picture? You don't get that fucking reblogged anywhere else. I don't know what I'm saying.
Attitude of online culture that feels almost lost to time. Something pretty much non-existent in today's mainstream online space. The internet is just so different from what it used to be. Now, I have talked in the past about the reasons why this change has occurred over time. There are several, but at least knowing the fundamentals of them will help us better understand, as well as appreciate some of these iconic 90s websites that have since completely changed beyond recognition, or have even been lost to time entirely. These early websites were experimental, they were fun, almost careless, and also had an overwhelming emphasis on younger audiences. Today, we're going to talk about them and how they all changed.
Like the stream, boys, like the stream.
If you're wondering about the background, right now I am at the Casbah Coffee Club in Liverpool. It is owned by Pete Best's family, and it is where the Beatles regularly stayed from 1960 to 1962. Yes, I am in the very room where the most...
I'll be honest, the Beatles fell off and no one cares.
Online, the internet became much easier to use and much more commercialized, and saw mass adoption within everyday households. Much like Yahoo at the time, AOL provided a list of websites listed by category that you could access. This was great for people navigating the web for the very first time and didn't know where to start other than on the webpage of their provider. One of these pages, of course, was Nickelodeon. Fortunately, at first, you needed to be an AOL member in order to use it. Kids were actually a great demographic for technology, since they were going to be the ones to grow up with it more than anybody. Though in 1997, Nick would officially become its own website, the nick.com that we came to recognize. The webpage featured a ton of games, which were growing increasingly more powerful thanks to the rise of Flash media. It also included exclusive content of the Nick Studio, TV shows, even a submission box to write to your favorite Nick stars. They eventually introduced something called
Yeah, like Tommy Pickles from the Rugrats, dude. Type him a message. He'll totally get it.
Pick Live, which was a programming block on the channel where users could log onto the site and vote for which shows they wanted to watch. The winning choice would then get airtime. Thanks to the internet and brilliant marketing from the Nick team, kids had this newfound power and agency that was pretty much inconceivable before, and was further amplified by the channel bug in the corner that promoted the website. Its fun and energetic presence, efficiency, and constant media exposure made Nick.com an online hub for many 90s kids. This website would become much more complex throughout the 2000s, but as smartphones began to dominate the space, things started to change. Due to their small screens, smartphones require much more simple UI designs, especially when it came to online navigation outside of an app. Because of this, along with the decline of Flash media, which I've made an entire video about, the standard for web design began to shift towards much more simplified web pages. So yeah, the Nick.com website certainly does still exist, and even still has games, but it isn't quite the same. The page has a much less kid-friendly, much more professional vibe to it. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing is obviously up to the individual's preference, but the Nick.com of today certainly is different, and serves a different role than it did at its inception. What good is navigating the internet if you don't have a cool web browser to do it on? Well, today we're going to answer that question using Opera.
I'll harm myself at the Opera. I swear I will.
Opera's going windows basically pop it out, create tabs within anywhere, even outside the separate thing.
Straight up pissing me off,
another
man.
shining example, Blockbuster.com. Did you know, kids, that before there was Netflix, if you wanted to rent a video, you actually had to go to the store and buy a disc? Yes, obviously Blockbuster Video was around during a time where the internet was still too new to commercially support large amounts of bandwidth for something like movies and television shows. So its business practices stuck to the traditional way of doing things. You would walk into the store, rent out the physical copy of the media you wanted to borrow, and you would return it before a specified deadline, much like a library, except obviously you had to pay for it. But much like with Nick.com, the internet was the place for creating experimental environments within your limited means. What if Blockbuster created a digital store as well? One which emulated the look and feel of their real life stores. This is more than just an online page full of references and convenient ways to buy things. No. This is a page that's fun, where you can explore and find cool little buttons and gadgets. You hopped over to the music table to navigate your favorite tunes. To navigate the games, you clicked the TV and game controller. The entire thing is extremely basic in its functionality, pretty much just a giant image with invisible buttons on it to make it look more interactive. But the spirit is there, and so is that ambition to create another world within this one. Blockbuster would tone it down on this approach as the years went on, and their website started to look more like a website.
I do not remember Blockbuster's website. What the hell is this shit?
Now, as you know, Blockbuster just couldn't keep up with the times, and they went under. That alone is an entire story for another video. But the main culprit was that they just couldn't...
Yeah, I remember the store and the brand, but I do not remember the website.
...properly adapt to online streaming, and their business model quickly became antiquated. Though it is interesting to see a company fully embrace and experiment with this new mainstream medium of communication while having no idea that it would contribute to their demise years later. Naturally, this practice of creating a website that was an extension of a particular brand was becoming the norm. While the internet was growing in popularity in the 90s, so was coffee. Particularly
I love coffee.
Culture. Coffee was no longer just something you ordered at the diner or bought at the grocery store in powder form. Coffee was now a lifestyle, a commitment. Something that oddly complemented coffee was the computer. You had internet cafes where you could order a coffee and surf the web at the same time. It is these combined forces that led to the massive rise in popularity of Starbucks. And their website, starbucks.com, was once again meant to be an online version.
Looks like shit, pal.
You've got a page full of warm colors, abstract art, almost rustic typography, not all that different from the kind of things that you would see walking into a Starbucks back in the 90s.
Beyond
you
the
can learn
bean.
about the type of coffees that Starbucks has got brewing up for you, the history behind it, and it's all accompanied by these snug colors and animations. It's the digital equivalent of sitting in a log cabin next to a fireplace on a cold winter night. It's a look and feel that elevates coffee beyond just a beverage, but as a work of art. Effectively capturing this feeling in the digital space arguably only strengthened this computer and coffee relationship. But as demonstrated earlier, this distinct look didn't last forever. Like all these other websites, Starbucks would also take this minimalist, more homogenized, but professional look that we tend to recognize today. Though I do think the early version of the Starbucks website really embodies the atmosphere of their stores at the time.
I don't mind the new version. The old one looks like shit. TBH on God.
It only makes sense that bookstore
and
culture
no games?
would complement it as well.
No games?
Heck, many bookstore chains would even include a coffee shop inside of them, which leads me to more of an honorable mention. Borders.com. Borders was a huge bookstore at this time. It was popular when I was growing up. I actually recently found a Borders receipt for something that I bought in 2007. Seeing as I'm in the UK right now, I can't exactly show it to you, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. But I do have a photo of a Borders gift card that I got in 2008. I took this photo not too long ago.
That's not enough evidence, sir. I don't believe you. This guy's kind of bothering me with the way that he's explaining these things, but listen. It's not his fault.
As well as the eventual fate of this beloved bookstore. Yeah, Borders no longer exists. They completely ceased operations in 2011, meeting a pretty similar fate to Blockbuster, in that they were slow to adapt to the times. But seeing the site as it once was really provides a look into a time where the online world and traditional world still comfortably coexisted. As the number of these unique websites continued to grow, people then began to find ways to buy and sell them. In 1998, you have the launch of pets.com. Now, this is a pretty strange story, because despite being exceptionally ordinary, this was a website that attracted so many people for none of the reasons you might be thinking. It basically encompassed all those 90s internet tropes that we've been discussing, but it gets weirder. At this time, the internet enters the stock market. Here is a chart put together by Brew Market showing the initial public offer for Pets.com. In February of 2000, it was around $11, and it went to almost nothing a year later.
The bubble burst! I've heard about this .com bubble. Ugh, you're kind of, they're losing me. They're losing me.
This was a 70% nosedive.
I was a baby when this happened. Get over it.
What on earth happened? In the late 1990s, the .com bubble starts to form.
I knew it.
I've talked about the .com bubble crash in intricate detail in the past, but the main culprit of it was over-speculation within the internet market. Because truthfully, Pets.com really wasn't that remarkable of a website. It was an online shopping site for buying pet toys. Pretty basic stuff. What made it stand out was the use of these tropes. Very bright colors, themed typography, cartoony illustrations. It really does capture the feeling of a real-life pet store. Most notably, Pets.com also had a fun sock puppet mascot, which began appearing on the website and even on television in 1999. The business all
Loomis is my sock puppet mascot. He's asleep right now, but he's doing his job. Look at him. He's representing the brand.
already had a lot of problems with its setup. The main one being that their entire system of shipping products just wasn't commercially viable. So what did investors do? Ignored it. Because some of the top websites in the world started on the spot with absolutely nothing, like Amazon. In fact, Amazon was one of their main investors, which by association increased Pets.com as a novelty. We of course call this survivorship bias because it fails to also consider the many e-businesses that failed and became forgotten at this time. But investors just didn't care. Plus, the site has a pet of the day page.
Loomis!
Isn't that cute? However, with time,
It's an
this
imposter.
unsustainable business model caught up with them, and Pets.com was unable to generate a hefty profit that could justify its overly inflated price with investors.
Damn, big sad. Shout out Nation Squid for this video, dude. I'll link the full thing in the description down below. Hell yeah, brother. I don't remember Pets.com, not even a little bit.